How's it going, everyone? Welcome to the stream. It's been a while. I have not posted since I did my last collab, and I don't know. I've been feeling a little lazy lately, and I was like, you know what? I need someone else to come on with me, keep me consistent and stuff like that. So, uh, I was in like a little search for a co-host type thing, and you know what? I was like, you know what? Who better to go with than a person who, we pretty much agree on everything as far as basketball wise, and we have Jalen Johnson himself, guys. I'm just went. This is Matt. You can get used to him. He'll be around a lot more. You'll see him a lot more often, so y'all can kind of get used to him. But we're just gonna kind of talk and talk about the Hawks. I have not been on here in a while, so I got to get back used to used to what we usually do. But here's Matt.
Nice to meet everyone virtually. Maybe if we go out to a game this year, I might be able to catch some people. I plan on going to a bunch of games this season. Once work calms down, open enrollment stuff calms down, I'll be able to be a lot more free during the week. So,
Yeah, you know, like as far as like this season, I wanted to go to a lot of games, but I didn't take into account we had All Star ticket prices go up. So it's
yeah.
like you like this year. Something I wanted to do was I wanted to sit in the 100 section this year. Uh, Usually I like to sit in 222, which is right in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
That's what I say.
but like I was looking, I was like 222 went up to like $30 a person. And it's like man, it's like having DeJounte is good for competing, but I said, man, I said he is he's shooting prices up, but I'm definitely going to be at quite a few this year as well. So for sure it would be great to see a lot of you guys there. But we have some talking points that we got to cover. I'm gonna get a couple shout outs in the chat real quick. Matt, G, he's in the Discord. Um, just uh, another great person. Tangu, we know him from the Mon streams.
Right, right,
He's a Clint Capella advocate, so we
right.
should have some fun tonight with him. Uh, but I'm excited. I'm excited because we're gonna start off by talking about Nate McMillan. He is he's in some trouble.
Yes.
I've been keeping up with kind of what's been going on behind the scenes with Nate. And he is you know Nate's a good person. He's just one of those guys, and my thing is glitch. I don't know why. I got to get used to like that backdrop. It's the first time I'm doing it this year. But Nate is he's just such a stagnant schedule based coach. He doesn't he doesn't do anything different. And you saw in the Charlotte game, he really he just was so he was so like, I'm going with this, and if this don't work, then I guess we're just gonna lose the game. And I hated that last year because he was always like, well, we're just gonna run our regular 9-man rotation, and we lost a lot of games. Teams were making adjustments. Steve Clifford made a lot of adjustments. He was just rotating. He was making his rotations and making Nate look bad. I mean, but I know Matt. I know he had some opinions on Nate as well. Our opinions on Nate are pretty similar, but Nate he is something.
ain't ain't he? Okay.
Yeah. And I was watching the stream I think it was last night or night before. You made the perfect Nate McMillan post game impression. I mean, you were right. I mean, he's so long winded. I just think that we didn't get back far enough. It's like, Nate, answer the question with some realism. Like he is something. What do you think? how long do you think Nate is gonna last? Like, I, I don't think it's gonna be too much longer, but how long do you think Nate's gonna last?
I really want to say um to the trade deadline. I do think that for a lot of different factors, he may stay until the end of the season.
Mhm.
Just simply because the logistics of bringing in a new guy in the middle of the season is a little difficult. Plus, you got to factor in the buyout, and you have to factor in his son's buyout as well. Because if he's not there, his son isn't going to be there. So someone brought that to my attention. You got to factor everything
Yeah.
into the picture, and then on top of that, you also have to um, make sure that everyone doesn't that they still have hope for the season, and that they don't give up hope for the season because of a coaching change.
Yeah, from what I've heard, this year's not supposed to be like a like I've heard that Travis like I've heard constantly that Travis would make a coaching change. He is just really afraid that a coaching change could derail the season. It's a lot different from the Lloyd Pierce coaching change when you had an experienced head coach on your bench who was at the front of your bench who could come right in, coach the team, and at that point you didn't really have expectations like you did, like you do now. So it's like now, if you look at the bench, it's like we got Joe Prunty, we got Nate's son, we got uh, Mike Lombardi. None of these guys are going to be able to come in, and I don't know. Maybe they will. I mean, I like Joe Prunty, I like Mike, but at the same time, they're not what the Hawks are gonna like. I don't think anything's going to change if you say Joe Prunty, you're the head coach. Come in and give us a new like. I don't think that's gonna. I really don't think that's gonna work.
And what I was hoping that because every team every season, it's like, okay, players, I want you to get better. This is what I want you to work on. This is what I want you to improve your game, facet of your game. I think oftentimes for coaches, there isn't that same expectation or template to use and say, okay, I want you to get better with your strategies. I want you to get better with your use of timeout. I want you to get better with your rotations and things like that. I think either you have it or you don't, you know. So with Nate, he doesn't have it. He's just good enough to get you into the playoffs,
Yeah,
and nothing more. And
yeah.
that's disappointing.
Mhm.
Especially with this talent. You would think like Monty Williams had that rep too, right? Monty Williams had a rep before he got hired with the Suns, that he was a 40-something win coach, got you to a certain point, leaned too much on the star players, not enough strategy and X's and O's behind it. And, that was his rep before he got to Phoenix. And, he's been able to turn it around, multiple 50-win seasons, NBA Finals appearance, 65 wins, 64 wins last season. And so that's the type of growth and trajectory that you would have hoped Nate, had, but it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, and some could even argue that the only reason that kind of happened in Phoenix was because getting Chris Paul and some of those guys. So I agree that Monty is very similar to Nate. I think you have a lot of coaches around the list similar to Nate. You got Monty Williams, you got Doc Rivers, in my opinion,
Mm-hmm.
and
Dwayne Casey.
Dwayne Casey. I think Tibbs, but Tibbs is gonna make you
Mm-hmm.
play defense. Those guys are gonna play a lot better defense than what you would see from a Nate McMillan team. And then, like in my opinion, I think even when you look like like honestly, you know, you're right because Nate hasn't really like when he was in Indiana, right? I wasn't conscious enough to know about all those Seattle days, but
Yeah.
you know, I know for sure in Indiana, um, he was just a mediocre coach. And I was, I always look around the league and I said, you know what? I said, Nate's not going to last long. I knew after the bubble they were going to let him go. And people were outraged, like, why would you let Nate go? Why would you let Nate go? Nate had, in my opinion, a really decent roster. Back then, you didn't really need, like, I think the game just switched to going into you need stars to win. Because I think back then, if you had a good team with a really a good above average role players, like he had Malcolm Brogdon, it's hard to remember that team, but I know he had Sabonis. I know he had Miles Turner,
T.J. Warren,
and back then T.J. Warren was a really good player before he suffered those injuries. Come on, there you go. So I thought that he kind of failed as a coach back then, TJ McConnell, and then, obviously he had both the Holiday brothers, which, we'll get into that. But, I just honestly, I think that Nate, he is like a 44, 45 win type coach. He'll get you to the playoffs, like you said, and you'll have a first round playoff series that'll look competitive the first two games, and then it'll be lack of adjustments, and then you won't make it throughout the rest of the series. And from my understanding, Travis and Landry and Tony and those guys, they're not looking for that. You add another star to the team, you want to at least be in the Eastern Conference Finals. Unless you see Milwaukee like in the second round, you want to at least be in the Eastern Conference Finals with a finals appearance. And Tangu says, I don't think we have another season to underperform. And I agree, we don't. And that's where the thing is. It's like, honestly, you're kind of stuck in a way, you're kind of stuck in two problems here. Because you could go with, Nate could, I'm speaking if I'm in the front office, we could go, I think that this can work with Nate. Let's just give it a little bit more time. It's only 3 games. Then you could also go, we could get rid of him now, not have too much change and not have too much it's not going to be too much to the point where it's like, all right, you have to change everything 20, 30 games, 40 games into the season. Or let me get that. There you go. So we don't have to do too much change. And it's like, for me, I would let him go now. That's just me. I wouldn't wait. But then again, you could wait and Nate could, he could change. I don't think he's going to change, but there's always that could factor, especially when you invest in someone for the next 2.5 years, as far as money goes. And then I did not know that his son was under contract, like their contract was kind of together type thing, which I would expect that. But
someone told me, they said, Nate just got his son a bigger allowance. What that wrestler is footing the bill for.
Wow.
And
what a disgrace.
What
a disgrace.
I think Nate staying has a lot to do with two things. It's twofold. One, you want to try to show some type of stability, right, at the head coaching level, because you don't want to consistently flip coaches. But I think where the Hawks won't get a bad rap around the league for that is because, the team kind of ascended before, the coach was ready with Pierce, right? So the team got markedly better, and he was still developmental, in his outlook and his perspective. Then you flip it over to Nate, and Nate is very rigid. He's very, I would say, predictable, but predictable can be good and predictable can be bad. Predictable in a sense of where it's good is, I know every year we're going to win in the mid-40s. We're going to get in the playoffs. Our team is going to mostly play hard and be competitive. On the flip side of that, I know Nate is not going to make a lot of adjustments. He's not going to be very creative offensively or defensively. and he's going to depend a lot on the players on the court figuring it out. Okay. And to me, that never works. And to the extent that it does work, it only works in limited spaces. So Golden State, yes, Steve Kerr does give them incredible flexibility and autonomy out there, but also if he see 2 or 3 possessions in a row he don't like, timeout. I'm reorganizing everybody, and I'm getting some sets or some plays in there that I know is we're going to score. Nate, to me, and I just thought about this as you were talking. To me, Nate always does well with the little engine that could. So he always does well with teams that aren't expected to do much, right? A lot of his good rapport around the league and supporters came when he was winning games with Indiana when they had injuries. When he was winning games with Portland when they had injuries. Brandon Roy is one of my favorite players. He was my favorite player of the 2000s, early 2000s. I'll say this, I'll go to the ground saying this. If it wasn't for his knee injuries, he would have been right there where Kobe is in history. I don't know if he would have won many championships, but certainly individual accolades, he would have been right there. He was a beast. But to me, Nate has always thrived off of that. He because he could get the guys to play hard and play every possession, and his teams typically don't turn the ball over a lot. So in the NBA, a lot of teams turn the ball over a lot. So they don't beat themselves. But he never does anything out of the way or creative or, avant-garde where you're not expecting it and he catches you off kilter and you're able to take advantage. That's never going to happen. It has never happened, and when he's faced with expectations like he was in a bubble, he got swept. Last year, he's faced with expectations, got embarrassed against Miami. But the year prior, there was really no expectations, and then they rose to the conference finals. So, and then this year, obviously, there's a lot of pressure. And I think last night, unfortunately, I don't want it to happen, but I think last night is a foreshadowing of things to come. Now, I think they are going to beat the better teams in the league, but the teams that on paper, when you're looking at it, that the Hawks should win by 10, 12 points, I think they're going to struggle with because Nate doesn't, to me, foster an environment of whatever it takes, pants on fire, that's the G-rated version. But he's not going to do whatever it takes to win the game. Whatever I have to do to win. He's not about that.
Yeah, Nate. I'll touch on a few things here. Nate's one of those guys where, he's not going to do what it takes to win. If it's not in his rotation, if the guys just aren't making shots, he's not going to make any adjustments. It's just all right. Well, we just lost this game. We're not going to make any adjustments. He's not going to move from what he goes with. But I'll say this: when you have a team, well, okay, I'll say this first. The only way you can be predictable is when your team is so good that it doesn't even matter that you're predictable. Like, let's think about it. The Warriors with Kevin Durant, right? Like, if all they ran was 2 plays all game, it's going to be incredibly hard to stop those 2 plays, and you're probably going to still lose the game. But I'll touch on this. Nate, to me, like I said, he's just one of those coaches where, like, yes, he's gonna win you over a little bit over 40 games a season. You're gonna make the playoffs right around the 5-6 mark, and and then you're gonna, like I said, compete for the first 2 games, and then you're gonna be out in the first round. And I think that there are better coaches out there that can come right in and give us a lot better. Preferably, if we're going to wait till the offseason, I would like I mean, first of all, you always wait to see, if you're going to make a coaching change during the offseason, you're always going to look to see what new coaches have gotten fired that we feel like could be a great fit here, that I feel like that other team was crazy to fire. So in my opinion, I know you don't like him that much, but to me, I think that if Denver has another down year and they fire Michael Malone, I think that I think that he would be a guy that could say, you know what, let's bring him in. But I will say this. At the deadline, if we make a coaching change at the deadline, I think if you bring in a guy like Quinn Snyder, right? Mm-hmm. Quinn Snyder is, I won't say he's like Nate, because first of all, he's a lot more earlier in his coaching career. But Quinn Snyder, you're probably going to win about 50 games a year. And to me, see you later, Sports Live in ATL. Thanks for stopping in. To me, Quinn Snyder I think he can be a really good playoff coach, in my opinion. I really do. With the right team, without, I like Rudy Gobert, but, without Rudy and Donovan, with Mike Conley at point guard, which I don't even get started on Mike Conley, and nothing but undersized wings that can't guard the perimeter, I think that you can really see Quinn Snyder come in and get you deep into the playoffs with Trey, DeJounte. So, Quinn is a guy, he's available right now. I know I watched his exit interview. He was saying how he wanted to spend Halloween with his daughter. I was like, if we fire Nate after Halloween, you can spend Halloween with your daughter. You can come right in and coach for us. But you know what? Quinn Snyder, and I think there's like I don't know how you feel about Frank Vogel. In my opinion, I think he got canned in LA. I don't think they should have fired him. I think
he's of that Nate. He's of that Nate tree.
He's of the Nate tree, but think about it, like
Nate ilk.
It's true, and honestly, I thought that Nate should be ashamed of himself. I was surprised Nate did not bring in Frank Vogel to run the defense, and it was funny because Frank was on Nate's staff. No, Nate was on Frank's staff in Indiana when Indiana fired Vogel, and Vogel was actually getting them pretty far in the playoffs. Like they were given like I don't know back then. I think it was the Kawhi Leonard, the DeJounte Murray Spurs. I think that was even with Tony Parker, and that group. And Frank Vogel was winning a lot of games. He was getting far in the playoffs. He was the only one that could give Miami trouble. And then they fired him and brought in Nate. And then it's like I thought for sure Nate was going to bring in Vogel on the staff. But Vogel, I'm just thinking of available head coaches in my mind. I'm not a fan of Terry Stotts. I think he's a good regular season coach. I think he knows nothing about defense. I don't know. Maybe he does. I just think, when you have Dame and CJ in the backcourt, you're not going to defend very well. Maybe Terry Stotts does, but I'm not a huge fan of Terry Stotts. And then a last one, like I'm talking about coaches with experience. I have a lot of coaches without experience who I think would do amazing. But, another coach with experience that, I would not mind, seeing, I'm probably going to get a little hate for this, but I'm going to say it anyways. Matt, how would you feel if they brought in a guy like Scott Brooks or Dave Yoger? Remember, Scott Brooks is 60 and 22 in Oklahoma City. To me, he didn't have a very good
absolutely team not Scott Brooks. Absolutely not. Washington was a dumpster fire. He's a pick and roll king. I mean, that's pretty much his bread and butter is to pick and roll. Although he is with Chauncey right now in Portland, so maybe Chauncey done taught him a few things. Dave Yeager, I like him. I do. I like him a lot. I think he has a lot of good qualities. From everything I've read and understand, he's a very sharp X's and O's guy. Um, is very adaptable. Can come in and kind of tinker with things to tinker with a system to match the personnel. You saw that especially in Memphis. I don't really too much blame him for Sacramento because it was a dumpster fire again.
Sacramento is,
But he did get them to 39 wins, which is probably more than they're going to win this year. And I think Mike Brown is an excellent coach.
So someone in the chat brought up Luke Walton and said,
absolutely not.
And then they used the same thing. Now Jeremiah said it. He said, what about Luke Walton? I understand why you would say no, but Sacramento is a dumpster fire. Luke, to me, it's
no.
I don't like Luke Walton, but it's hard for me to make a stance on him because I think with the right team, I'll have to pass on Luke Walton because he's just one of those guys. And listen, I think this is a legit conversation to have about coaches because listen, I think that it's safe to say that if it's not during the season, Nate will be gone during the off season.
I fully expect this to be his last season, regardless.
Yeah.
But I've been thinking a lot about Sam Cassell.
Kenny Atkinson. Oh yeah, Sam Cassell.
I think Sam played the position. He can relate to Trey. They're both, Trey watched him, I'm sure, when he played for Houston. Mm-hmm. He's been around. He's got some really good rapport with John Wall and some other good point guards. Debatable if John Wall was a good point guard, but nevertheless, he has some good rapport around the league with some guys. I don't like the fact that he's only been I take that back. He was around Flip Saunders for a couple seasons, but I don't like the long termness that he has with Doc. Hopefully, that didn't wear off on him. But I do like Sam Cassell a lot. He would bring some energy that we just don't have on the sidelines. And that's another criticism I have of Nate. Like I told Gerald last night, I don't necessarily need Nate breaking the clipboard over his knee and I don't throwing Gatorade down. I don't need all that. What I do need though is
maybe they need it a little bit.
Man, what I do need is I need to know that you coached today. And one of the best quotes from the article, the Athletic article, in Ressler's interview with the media, he kind of talked about, he want Nate to, he want to feel Nate's presence more this year. There were a lot of games last year where if Nate didn't make an adjustment or did something with the game plan, it wasn't noticeable. It wasn't felt, and he kind of talked to Nate. I want to see your presence, felt, I want to know that you coached today. And Nate, to me, he's just so he will be like a good coach if this was like 2001. 2002, he would be the new up and coming guy, but his problem to complexity is simplicity, and that's not an example. His response to an adjustment is we just need to set harder screens. What?
Oh boy.
Dude,
boy.
And then reading the backstory on him, he was kind of lamenting the fact that in Seattle, he was an assistant coach for 1 year. He retired, was an assistant coach. They fired their head coach, Paul Westphal, and then he became the head coach, and he's been a head coach ever since. So he pretty much, some intermittent assistant coaching jobs, but mostly head coach. And he kind of talked about how he never really got immersed in the X's and O's side of basketball. It was mostly just he was a point guard, so he knows how to lead men, and he leads men to play with their absolute all, for the full 48 minutes, and by a product of the talent on the roster, they'll win a certain amount of games. So with that being said, I'm like, okay, some of his stuff, some of his lack of creativity and imagination can be explained, but also to me, that's a flaw. If I know I'm not good at something and I've known it for 15 years and I don't do anything to improve it, that's a problem. Mike Brown talked about this. He said he spent an enormous amount of time with Steve Kerr, asking him questions, drawing up plays, breaking down offensive film to try to increase his knowledge base and his verbiage so he could be up to speed the next time he became a head coach. He spent the last 5 years growing on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah.
I mean, you could kind of see that a little bit early on with Sacramento, but Nate is he's not a grower. It doesn't appear. I don't know him personally, but it doesn't appear that he's he has a thirst for knowledge.
Yeah, and it's just with Nate, you feel the complacency, and you feel how set he is, and it's just, to me, it's not gonna. I think everyone at this point knows it's not gonna work with Nate. Sam Cassell I like, because I see Sam Cassell has a lot of energy. I like Kenny Atkinson. I think that he could come in and change the culture. I think he would come in and set a whole new culture. He's just a guy that is going to be high on a lot of people coaching lists. I'm gonna mention a few more guys, and then we'll talk about Nate a little bit more, and then we'll move on here. But I think this is fun here talking about Nate. But I'm really high on a lot of coaches that have not. Now, if you know me, I'm an advocate, not an advocate, but I'm gonna get my camera together. There we go. So if I'm gonna hire a coach, chances are I'm gonna look at your past and I'm gonna say, can this fit with us? And it's probably gonna be a recycled coach. But I am a huge fan of some assistant coaches this year that I think next year are going to get a shot. I am really high on guys like Chris Quinn out of Miami, Sean Sweeney out of Dallas, Kevin Young. I'm really high on Kevin Young out of Phoenix. And then just like having other guys like Nate Tibbetts. And then even if we go to college a little bit, like Nate Oates, guys like that, like I'm looking for the Hawks. Like if we're gonna talk Hawks, I want the Hawks to get a nice young coach with an edge on them. Like think about like Will Hardy, right? Will Hardy, he got there and it was like, all right, it's business. Like it's not like, we're not playing around, we're not coming in and I'm not trying to make friends with these guys. No, we're coming in, we're playing hard. And that's the thing, like the same thing with like a guy like Ime Udoka. Ime Udoka, in his introductory press conference, he talked about being on Tatum and Brown the hardest. Like he had to get his star players, he wanted to let them know, listen, nothing's gonna come easy, and I will sit you down and I will cuss you out if you're gonna keep messing up in the end. I'll sit you down. You're not gonna keep playing and you're not gonna give 110% effort. And that's like the coach that we need. Nate, and another thing, what's up, Antonio? Welcome to the stream, brother. Another thing with Nate is it's so bad that he's like so scheduled and set, because whoever those 9 guys are in that rotation, they're going to stay in the rotation. So it's like, right, even if they earn it in training camp, and they may not earn it every day in practice, they're going to stay in the rotation because, well, we just got to stay set. We just got to run with our guys, cool, calm, and collect that fist. Like, I'm so sick of hearing about that fist. I saw a picture in the training facility of a fist in CCC. Cool, I think it's clear, comic, and connected, something like that. Like, why are you doing this? No one needs yoga sessions during the game. This is a competitive game. We need someone, and Antonio is right. Trey need a coach that's not scared to get in his grill. I love Trey. I think Trey is going to go down as one of the best players that ever walked, or especially in Hawks franchise. I think is not a question right now. But like, Trey needs someone to say, no, Trey, stop it. Either you stop it, I'm going to put you on the bench. And I think that DeJounte is that guy, but we need someone on the sidelines doing that. I need someone who's like, and Nate every now and then gets on the reps, every now and then. But I consistently say this during every single game. I need someone that is going to get on these players when they mess up. I said, lead in reps alone. Go get on your own players. I just saw Collins. Collins is the first that came to mind. Or I just saw I just saw Hunter miss a defensive assignment. Why are you not yelling at him? I just saw Trey shoot a 50-foot three with 23 seconds on the shot clock. Why are you not getting on him? Why are you not like, hey, bro, do it again, and I'm pulling you? I was at the game, and I'm going to say this. I'm going to say, if you want to go to that, I'm going to give it to you, Matt. I was at the game against Orlando, right? I'm sitting at the game against Orlando. I got a really good view of Nate and Jamal Mosley. Because I don't just watch the game when I'm at the game. I'm watching the coach. Same thing when I'm on TV. I'm watching the coaches on the sideline. And I'm watching Nate and I'm watching Mosley. Mosley's up and down the sidelines. He's hollering. I could hear him all the way up. And the crowd was a pretty good crowd. And I'm hearing Mosley, and he's directing the guys. And people say, well, that's because he's a young team. I don't think so. I see Bud and other coaches doing stuff like that. And I see Neil there with his arms folded. First substitution comes in. Aaron Holiday is coming up to the scorer's table, and he was coming to get Trey because Trey was playing awful to start the game. And when it was time for Aaron Holiday to sub in, Trey throws his hand and says, I'm not coming in. And then Hunter came out. And it's like, if you are going to sit here and let your 24-year-old star player tell you, no, I'm not coming out the game, you're not the guy. You're not the guy. Like I dare Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum to throw their hand at Ime Udoka and tell them they're not coming out the game. Udoka would get ejected for doing something against his own player. Like, I like, that is something that, like, it's ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. But so what do you think? And we're not going to go on Nate too much longer, but I want to hear you all's opinions on some of these younger coaches, even though you haven't really seen them. Some of these younger coaches, first-time coaches, like a guy like, I'll give you like 4 names here, and you can, and we can go through them. Like Chris Quinn, I'm really high on Chris Quinn. I think I think Chris Quinn can come in, depending on the team, and win a championship in his first 3 seasons, at least one. Depending on the team, I think he can, because to me, I watched him coach a few of those games when Spo was out with COVID, and he wasn't playing. In those post games, I listened to him talk, and he was very knowledgeable. So Chris Quinn, Sean Sweeney, Kevin Young, and then Adrian Griffin was really close to being the Bulls head coach. He was really close to being the Bulls head coach. But what do you think about those 4? And who do you think would be the best fit out of those 4? And what do you think they all could bring to the table, especially with Trey?
So I think I like Chris Quinn probably the most. Adrian Griffin, I've heard very glowing things about him. The only issue is, I don't know if it's an issue now with Nate's son on the staff, but AJ's on the team, so I don't know how that would work. But I think Chris Quinn, to me, obviously has a very good eye at developing players. He also has been around for 15 years, 16 years in
Yeah,
Miami.
yeah, he
So
knows what
he
he's doing.
understands the culture, and I hate that word culture, but he understands the culture. He understands winning, and to me, he is rigid in a sense, or he appears to be rigid in a just enough where you're going to get formality and you're going to get consistency, but not enough where he's going to die with a sheet of paper that he wrote at 3 o'clock and shoot around. He's going
Yeah,
to be able to be adaptable, flex certain things in, make adjustments on the fly. Even a couple games that he coached for Spo, their pace was way up because with Spo they played really slow,
yeah.
very
Unless they're in fast break,
yeah.
Spo is out there.
Predominantly, they operate in half court. But with him, he's speeding up tempo. He's having him shoot earlier in the shot clock. Just small little. Obviously, he's not going to replace Spo, but just small little tweaks where I can notice he made a difference. And so I do like him a lot, Chris Quinn. I was looking at him possibly going to Detroit at the end of this season.
You think they're going to let go of Casey?
I think Dwayne Casey time is coming to an end in Detroit.
They might offer Dwayne Casey a front office job. I think.
That's what I was reading. They were, make him like a senior advisor or make up some title for him.
Just not to fire him. Yeah.
Right. So you don't got to pay him. So I do like him a lot. I like Adrian Griffin a lot. I like the fact that the coach has been around Scott Skiles, who was a really good coach in my opinion.
I like
very similar to Nate, much more physical and more assertive than Nate, but similar to Nate in a lot of different ways. He was under Tibbs. I believe he was under Rick Carlisle. And then he was he's been under Nick Nurse for a while. So I believe Stan Van Gundy as well. And then Nick Nurse the last few years. And I think Nick Nurse is one of the top 3 or 4 coaches.
I love Nick Nurse. I would trade for Nick Nurse.
And he's so creative. And he comes up with all these different, in the middle of the season, our offense is struggling. Let me introduce these different offensive concepts, the blind pig and, the high split action and the flare screens and the back cuts. I'm going to integrate all this new stuff over All-Star break into the offense, and they took off, last season. So, and then on defense, I'm going to try a box and one. I'm going to try a 1-3-1 a press. I'm going to do some off the wall stuff and just do whatever I have to do to win these couple of games. And to me, Nate, he never does that. I know pretty much. I don't know who's going to lead. I mean, I know Trey's going to get his points. I don't know who's going to lead them in scoring. I mean, outside of Trey, but I pretty much know what they're going to do almost every possession. I know defensively for sure what they're going to do every possession. They're going to go to that stupid drop coverage, or they're going to go to man-to-man that leads into drop coverage. And it's like this guy, right? There's no matchup zones. There's no presses. There's no boxing ones. There's no traps. It's just so bland, and it's like a high school from a schematic perspective. It's like high school, and it's disappointing. Another name I would want to throw out there, a couple of names that I like. Jarron Collins. I do like him a great deal. It's just not the Stanford education, although that helps. That means, obviously he's exceptionally bright, but he can also be adaptable on the fly. And I listen to podcasts that he's done. I listen to interviews that he's done, and he's always talking about being at the frontier. being at the vortex of what's new and innovative, and incorporating some old school principles into the new modern NBA. And I love that. I love that. And I think this next coach has to be X's and O's, savant. He has to be a very upper echelon coach. Because if you look at our roster, you may be able to make some minor changes on the edges, but in the main, our roster is going to stay pretty much where it is. I mean, obviously, you might move Collins or something like that, but pretty much you're going to have to figure out how to use Murray and Young together. You're going to have to be able to use a 6'8" center in Onyeka Okongwu. You're going to be able to have to use DeAndre Hunter and make them effective every night, not just some nights, but every night, and relevant every night, in the offense. So this next coach is going to have to be creative. They're going to have to be a front line thinker. They're going to have to be able to manipulate certain lineups, come up with something on the fly that's not on film. And Tyronn Lue is the best coach in the NBA for this. They will go through a log a lot sometimes because the other teams, they watch film and they stop something. You may stop an action once or twice, but that third time, before you get to that third time, he's calling timeout, or you even see it sometimes when the other team's at the free throw line. He got that tablet or clipboard. He's drawing something up on the fly. They had went to a side 1-3 pick and roll. It wasn't working. He said, okay, instead of going to that 1-3 pick and roll, come up like you're going to set the ball screen up high, but they call it an Iverson cut. You cut diagonally across the free throw line, and the other shooter who's in the corner cuts back door. He drew it up while the other team was shooting free throws. 2 seconds later, they hit that play. They hit the cut backdoor guy on the alley-oop and got fouled. 3-point play, won the game. Nate, and he didn't do it. He didn't call a timeout and draw it up. He did it on the fly. Nate will never do something like that. Never, ever, ever.
Nate either just stand there and let Trey handle it or run a pick and roll.
And so, yeah, I mean, I get nauseous talking about Nate, but I'll just say, to put a bow on it, I'll say there is something for getting the team organized and getting them ready to play, which sometimes he even don't even do that. But at the very least, you do get, some kudos for that. But where we are right now in our trajectory, in our history as a franchise, we need a coach who's going to be a next level thinker. We need a strategist, a tactician that's going to be able to move parts around on a chessboard to, we need a Bobby Fischer, we need a dude that's going to look at what he has and not say, I need this, I need that, I need that. He's going to be able to take the parts that he has and be able to move them around and win the game.
Yeah, I agree. And like, for example, I think, and then we'll move on after this. But I remember, when you were talking about like drawing the plays on the fly. I remember, I was watching the Mavericks and the Jazz, their last game, and that final play that Snyder drew up, excellent play. I mean, Bojan Bogdanovic just missed a wide open shot, but had everyone else crashing in, Bojan just flipped right out. I mean, he was wide open, and that was drawn up perfectly. You had a lot of decoys. You had Donovan Mitchell, Jordan. So it was just, to me, it was just a great play. But yeah, Tyronn Lue. He's a mastermind. And when Steve Ballmer said that I believe we have the best coach in the NBA, and I was like, yeah, you're not wrong, because I have a lot of respect for Tyronn Lue, because it's the true time that you're going to see when the coach is actually good or not is when you're away from either LeBron James or Tom Brady. So it's kind of like those, and you see that Tyronn Lue, even though he has Kawhi and PG, like he didn't have them all year last year,
Right.
and those guys were still competitive.
I think they still won more games than us.
Yeah, they were competitive. They were just they were there, and it was hard. It was hard to beat them. And then the coach that you just described is Quinn Snyder in I would say a lot of moments, not all, but a lot of moments. But to me, having a thinker, that sounds a lot like a guy that we're gonna have to bring off someone's bench that's been there and knows, like, all right, you know what, I'm gonna run this and this and this. No, I'm gonna have to be creative. I'm gonna have to be like, all right, this is not working in the middle of the game. Let's go to this. And I think that you can get that with a Chris Quinn. And the only reason I bring up, okay, my thing stopped. Okay, there we go. The only reason I like Sean Sweeney is because I think Sean Sweeney, he has experience with all-star point guard, star point guard in Luka. But I've watched him as well. Kevin Young, I think he would be a guy that was kind of set a fire under the guys. But to me, Chris Quinn
in New York.
Who?
Kevin Young.
No, he's in Phoenix.
Okay.
If he's I believe he's the lead assistant in Phoenix. And another guy that can bring a lot of energy is John Lucas. I like John Lucas. He's probably a little older for the guy.
Yeah.
I don't think he'll adapt too well. They'll eventually tune him out like they did Nate. But Chris Quinn, some of those young coaches, I've got my eye on him. I think Atkinson can do it. So I like a lot of those coaches. But nevertheless, I mean, so you brought it up a little bit, but it's Trae and Murray. We haven't seen Trae. We haven't seen Trae and Murray. Well, let me address Dave's comment real quick. Here's the thing. I think Trae's actually gotten better with being that leader a little bit. We can't forget Trae's age because we can talk about how Trae is goodbye. How Trae is there we go. Oh boy. There we go. So we don't need sex bots coming in the chat. Anyways, but so I think that Trae's age has a lot to do with it. Like Trae's younger than you, Matt. So I'm not expecting Trae to come out, and I think he's younger than you. I don't know. But
he is definitely younger than
me. Matt looks 20s. I don't know. But Trae, he's very young, and he's still gonna go through a lot of those immature moments. And even though Trae wants to win, he's still gonna go through like a me moment. He's still gonna go through a me moment where he wants, there's gonna play some parts of his mind. It's like, all right, I know I run the show, but it's like, let me take this shot. Let me try to get the crowd into it. I think a lot of this stuff is like, it's innocent. I don't mind when Trae takes those deep shots because I know that there's a chance, like, yeah, that can go in. I'm not gonna say anything if it goes in. So I think that Trae has actually gotten better, but it's going to take some time. You don't see Luka over there being a leader, and let's be honest here. That's not to throw hate on Luka or throw hate on any young player. I'm trying to get this thing to stop letting that's bothering me. But anyways, Luka is not a leader yet. Why? Luka's what? I think he's 23 or 24. Mm-hmm. Look at Anthony Edwards. And if you want to stay fair, and go with stars of the franchise, look at how long it took Devin Booker to become that leader or become even more mature and humble. So to me, it really took Chris Paul for him to get to that point. But to me, I think that Trae is getting there as of right now. If Trae is going to shoot if Trae's going to shoot 30, 40-foot threes, and you don't have anyone telling him stop doing that, he's going to keep doing it until he realizes that that's hurting the team. And you could argue either way it goes. But to me, if you have a weak coach who's going to stand there and just let it happen, then you need a new coach. And eventually Trey, to me, I think Trey's that buy-in guy. So if you're like, we're not doing all this individual stuff, we're gonna have ball movement. So Trey, you may not have the ball, bring it up. It may be DeJounte, it may be Hunter, it may be Collins. It's not gonna be Capella, but it may be those guys. And Trey is like, all right, I'm okay with that. I think Trey is that type of guy. So but Matt, what do you think? Because obviously we haven't seen Trey and Murray to their fullest potential, like fit wise. We kind of seen like, all right, Murray comes in big, Trey comes in big, and we've seen at times, where they kind of complement each other on a few possessions. But moving forward, what do you think that they're going to look like together? Like, what's that perfect mesh going to look like? Whether it's with Nate here with a stagnant offense or Nate gone with a creative offense. I do know Travis loves offense.
I love offense too. I could talk about offense for hours. But I think it's going to look like very similar to what you saw this past really playoffs with Boston and Tatum and Brown. And there is moments for your turn, my turn, that's going to happen. But I think that it's going to involve a lot of off-ball action. It's going to involve a lot of pistols. It's going to involve a lot of flare screens. It's going to involve a lot of passing and connecting, not between them two, but other guys on the team, the other three guys on the court that's going to be able to set them up. And you run and everybody on the court can be effective. You're constantly moving and you're setting screens and you're back cutting, and there's 30-35 assists a game is a goal, and so I think that's the best version of the Hawks, where anybody on the court, to an extent with center, but everybody on the court can be effective. Everybody on the court can hurt you. Everybody on the court can take it and go coast to coast and set Trey and Murray up. And they're not, they could be reactionary, and they could be decision makers. So it's both. And I think you're not going to get there with Nate, but I think with the next coach, you're going to be able to get that. You're going to be able to get some different things. Maybe you run a Hunter and Murray pick and pop, with a side pick and roll, off ball side pick and roll with John Collins, and Trae Young. So there's a lot of different creative things you can do that won't happen, I think, this year, but there's a lot of different things you can do to open up the floor and make it much more difficult to guard. And a lot of that, I think, involves Murray being the initial primary decision maker and the initial guy because Trey has more gravity, so you don't want him to have the ball in his hands as much when it matters, because you do want the ball in his hands when it matters, but as a finished product, not as a decision maker. You want him as an output. You want him either coming downhill, shooting, making a quick decision. You don't want him to pat the ball and think and have to figure out a defense and then decide where the ball is going to go. You want him playing more free. You want him making passes, very quick reads, and making decisive passes on the move. And so, horns and off-ball screen added to this stale offense is not creativity, okay? Especially when 90% of it, so far, it's only been 3 games, but so far, 90% of the Horns' actions that they run involves Trae Young shooting a mid-range shot. Okay, they take way too many mid-range shots. They need to start taking more threes, and you can have it where I want them to shoot 43s a game, but I don't want everybody shooting threes. I only want John Collins shooting them, Trae Young shooting them,
Justin
Hunter,
Holiday.
Holiday,
I know, I
uh,
was kidding.
AJ Griffin. Although coincidentally, Justin Holiday is sick, so he's questionable for tomorrow's game. I
Which I
thought that,
heard. I heard he's not going to be able to go.
yeah. I find that a little ironic, right? Griffin not plays him in 8 minutes, and all of a sudden he's sick. The guy who's ahead of him in the lineup is sick. But yeah. So I think the offense longevity is going to give it longevity and long term success, sustained success is going to involve a lot more movement, a lot multiple decision makers, and a situation where Trae is it's the output and not so much the input.
Yeah, I agree, and I was looking around, and listen, I think Brown and Tatum is the perfect type, combo to compare it to, because think about this, Brown and Tatum are both guys that kind of need the ball in their hands to be effective, but now they both can defend. So thanks to Ime Udoka for waking them up, but you know. I'll say this. First of all, I'll say this with Justin Holiday. That is that is something, because I looked at the day. I said, I said, Justin Holiday sick now. I said, I don't buy it, because Nate won't come right out and say, well, Justin's not in the rotation. AJ is, just like Tom Thibodeau came out and said, well, Kemba is not in the rotation. No, Nate's not going to do that. If he ever had an idea of changing, he wouldn't want to be like wrong in a sense, or wouldn't want to make that like vocal to the point where it's like, I'm doing what they want me to do. So it's one of those it's one of those things where it's like, I think AJ Griffin's going to take Justin Holiday's spot in the rotation, honestly. And listen, I think that I think we're going to see a whole lot more winning. But listen, Bogey coming back, I think, will help. But Bogey may not be back for a while, which is unfortunate. But the thing is, I like Justin Holiday on the defensive end. I'm a fan of his defense. I think that he's a grimy guy. I think he's a guy that you're going to need in the playoffs and grinded out series. It's just, you don't realize, like, and listen, I was not a fan of trading Herder at obviously at first, because I wanted Herder. You look at his shooting, but thinking we had Bogey, but I think that Justin Holiday can still be really good for the team. Do I think he make it past the deadline? I don't think so, but I just think it's like you said. I think it's ironic that he's sick, and AJ Griffin, who gets 5 minutes or 3 minutes, comes in and drops 8 points, who he was subbed out for. So I think that that's really something. But another thing that I kind of wanted to talk about was, like, and we can come back to this if we want, but what this team kind of needs to take that next step, right? I think at best this year, I think we could make the finals, but I'm not gonna be like, if we don't make the finals, I'm not gonna be like, fire everyone. I'm not gonna do that, because listen, honestly, if we were to go into a playoff series against Boston and Milwaukee today, I don't think we win that series. That's just me. That's me. I don't think the shooting is there like it needs to be. I think that there's a lot of questions with size. I think we definitely get killed on the boards against a team like Milwaukee. Milwaukee's a big team. You got Giannis, you got Bobby Portis, you got Brook Lopez, you got Serge Ibaka, you got Joe Ingles. You got big guys that play big. So I don't think we win a series against Milwaukee right now. And Boston, to me, like, I underestimated Boston heavily, especially going to that first game against Philadelphia. I was betting Philadelphia. I was very high on Philadelphia. Looking at what they added, I was like, Philadelphia can be a top 3 team in the
Now,
East.
did I think there was going to be? I mean, it's still early, but did I think there was going to be this bad? No, but did I think they were going to be bad? Yes, because to me, they added what they did was essentially they got rid of 30% of their offense and replaced it with a guy who's sporadic in DeAnthony Melton and a guy that's a zero in PJ Tucker. So that's what they're really missing. They're missing offense. They're missing scoring. And
So,
so
but they have the scoring, in my opinion.
and they play too slow. And
That's
it's a lot of deficiencies with that team.
That's down basketball.
Yeah, there's a lot of deficiencies.
See, but I was a fan of DeAnthony Melton.
No, I like DeAnthony Melton, but he's streaky.
Yeah, but I'm looking at what they could have picked at 23, I think it was, and I don't think any of those guys would have.
Could they have not gotten Terry?
Who's that?
What was his name? Not Delon. What's his name?
Jalen Terry?
Yeah.
No, he
from Arizona.
He went to the Bulls at like 18.
Okay.
And then looking at they could have, I think he went after. They could have gotten Walker Kessler. I like Walker Kessler. I think he's going to give you a lot of solid minutes behind Embiid. I know you're talking about scoring, but I'm looking at like who could they have gotten? Like I thought it was a good trade because it's like you get rid of a injured player and Danny Green, who's not going to probably play at all this year. You dumped off his salary, and then you got off a pick of probably a guy you're going to have to pay in the next few years. And then, in my opinion,
Isaiah Joe, I thought he was a good player. They let go.
Who?
Isaiah Joe.
Isaiah Joe. I was surprised they didn't let go Jaden Springer, but Doc seems to really like him and his defense.
Did they move off of Paul Reed, or did they just downgraded him his minutes?
No, they moved. No, they kept Paul Reed, and they got rid of Charles Bassey.
I like Reed. I thought we could have used Reed.
Reed can fit right into one of the trade exceptions we have. But to me, I think if you replace I'm looking at the roster, they still have the scoring. Shake Milton, to me, if you put Shake Milton in a really good position, Shake Milton can score. Shake Milton has just really never been like in that position. I'm looking at him. Thibault is not going to give you any scoring, unfortunately. Even though he's one of the best slashers in the league, but he's not going to give you any scoring. Furkan Korkmaz, streaky, very streaky. He's something else. To me, they could have used. To me, they should have been the team going out there to either trading for Bojan Bogdanovic or Eric Gordon. They should have been out there trying to get those guys shooters. Because what made them like so dangerous and so hurtful against teams before the Simmons trade was their shooting. Seth Curry, Danny Green, you had to me, I like Niang. I think Niang is he makes timely shots. To me, he's a chirper. And Tengu, I am totally against Thibault being out of the rotation. I think the Hawks should go after Thibault. I mean,
you know how I feel about Thibault.
Yeah, but listen, I'm not going to Thibault for his offense. I want his defense. We have a trade exception that we can use, and I think Thibault fits right into that trade exception. Daryl Morey's not gonna. He can't hardball with Matisse Thybulle. He's not even in the rotation. That's all I tell him. I'll trade you 3-4 second-round picks for Thybulle. Give me Thybulle, and we'll use a trade exception. If not, like no one's giving up a first-round pick for a guy that's not even in the rotation. I think they're gonna have to eventually move on from Thybulle, Korkmaz, Milton. But so I think that their team is. Man, I think I was a little bit too high on them, but looking at teams like Boston is just something else. Like their defense just turns into so much offense. And then Brooklyn to me looks like Brooklyn from last year. Brooklyn, they did by the way, I'm a huge fan of Sean Marks. I think Sean Marks is one of the better executives in the NBA. I think he definitely ranks top 8, but I thought he did an awful job this summer. I like TJ Warren, but you needed another big, and you went out there and got Markieff Morris. Markieff Morris. Just awful offseason for them. And then, Ben, I don't know what Steve. Here's the problem. Steve Nash is an awful coach. To me, Katie and Kyrie knew what they were doing when they requested Steve Nash. They knew they weren't going to get anything from Steve Nash. No accountability, anything like that. Steve Nash he just stands there. I mean, because what can he do? What are you going to tell Kevin Durant? What are you going to tell Kyrie Irving when they're dribbling the air out the ball and Ben Simmons was fouling out after 2 minutes? Like what are you going to tell those players? I think Steve Nash, to me, I think he needs to go work in the front office or on TV. He's just not fit to coach. I don't even think he'd be good in a rebuilding situation. I'm just kind of going down the list of teams around the East. Toronto seems to always be there. Like Toronto, I can never say, Toronto, you're going to be a 9th seed this year. Toronto will wind up being the 5th seed or something like that, something crazy like that. But Toronto never, I know Masai Ujiri. I don't know him, but I know Masai Ujiri to be a guy that's like he doesn't have to make like major changes to feel like he made the team better. Like he said something big in his media day. Actually after the season, I was watching his media day, and I love watching executives media days and stuff like that, or like exit interviews and stuff like that. And I was listening to him, and he was like, "Our whole mindset is about winning." And he was like, last season, the Tampa Tank season, he's like, we won. He was like, why? Scotty Barnes. And it was like, when you have a mindset like that, it's like, you're going to win.
Analyst?
Here we go. I'm back.
Okay.
All right. My internet does that sometimes with StreamYard puts a lot of pressure on it. But I like Masai Ujiri with that. Their team has a lot of length. Do I think they're going to make it far in the playoffs? No, because they don't have enough shooting. They don't have enough shooting, and their need for a legit big is showing slower and slower and slower. Before, they were able to get away with Pascal and Scotty at center, but now their true need for a center is really showing. Then I'll say one more team in the East, and then I'll hand it to you, and you can give me your opinion on some of these teams. To me, the only really other team that's a concern, I think Miami's okay. I don't think they got any better. I mean, I don't, they have no scoring. No scoring. To me, they should have went and cast in their chips to get Kevin Durant. That's my opinion, or Donovan Mitchell. They should have moved a few pieces, got some first-round picks, and they should have went out and got one of those 2 players to get Jimmy Butler a legitimate scoring option. But Cleveland surprising me, because Cleveland so far this year is one of the number 1 3-point shooting teams. That doesn't surprise me, with having the Donovan Mitchell and all those guys. But Cleveland surprised me because I just knew they were going to be awful on defense. And I think they still will be. I think Cleveland's going to fall off. But Donovan Mitchell has been really, really good for Cleveland with Darius Garland in that backcourt. And then, also looking at, their depth to me is not that bad. They didn't give up. They gave up, a lot of, starters who are going to be fighting for positions, like Lauri Markkanen, Colin Sexton, Ochai Agba. They didn't really give up significant players, adding Ricky Rubio back, still having Karis LeVert, Cedi Osman, those guys. Robin Lopez, who's big. To me, he does. I know the chat's going to rip me for this, but to me, he does a little bit more than even Clint Capella could dream of. At least he has a hook shot. He's effective in the paint. He's going to give you solid minutes on the defensive end of the floor. But, I like the Cleveland roster. I just think that it's not ready to compete with the Milwaukee's and even with us, even though they beat us in the preseason. I think that by that time, I think Murray and Trey will be well oiled, and I think it's going to be too much for a lot of teams in the league. But the Cavaliers, their Achilles heel is going to be defense. They're not going to be able to defend at all. I mean, if Trae Young was talking about how short he was, you got a backcourt that's 6'1", you know, and you have a what? You have a 6'6" wing that can't defend. Your front court helps it a lot, but at the same time, it's just going to be something else.
Really, the only team that I really have any legitimate respect for in the East is Boston and Milwaukee. I think those two teams are, and Milwaukee to me is more to do with Giannis than the rest of the team. I don't really, I just don't think they're a good defensive team. They weren't a good defensive team last year, and they got some very questionable defenders like Joe Ingles and Pat Covington. I do see Jordan Nwora, who I wanted us to draft instead of, I believe, Bruno Fernando. And I like Milwaukee in the sense of they have the championship pedigree. Giannis appears to be hungry again for a championship.
And to me, there's size too. Yeah.
Chris Middleton is about to come back. Well, not about to right now, but it's coming back at some point. So Milwaukee is very, very strong. And then Boston, I mean, they're, in my opinion, they're probably the best team right now in the NBA is Boston. Not so much from a talent perspective, but from a the sum, is better than the whole is better than the sum of those parts, And if you pay attention to them, they play a lot faster than they played last year. They move the ball up ahead in transition. They run their sets very early in the shot clock. They're very, very formidable. Boston, I think it's Boston. I think it's Milwaukee, and I think it's us. I think we're the three best teams in the East. Well, that group is the three best teams in the East. I think I think what Atlanta's going to have to figure out is how do we get the best out of the best out of a bad situation. We know we don't have the coach that's going to get us there, but as players, and Murray kind of talked about this yesterday, how can we hold each other accountable to where we rarely even look at the sidelines? Like, you call a timeout? Okay, let's go over here and sit down. But they want to get to a point where they hold each other to such a high standard that coaching Nate really has little effect on them. And so that's going to take some time. But from a talent perspective, I think the Hawks are a top 3, top 4 team. A lot of it depends on Toronto. I think Toronto's the other team that's sneaky good in the East. I don't believe in Miami. I do not believe in Philadelphia. I was telling you for months, I do not believe in Philadelphia for a variety of factors. One, to me, they don't have a legitimate number 3 scorer, possibly even number 2. Some nights Harden does have it, but a lot of nights he's, I think, so drained from having to set up everybody that offensively, shooting-wise, he just doesn't have what he had before. He's lost a step. A lot of people, LeBron and others, and like, oh, okay, like you can play the 40. Not everybody's built that way. Not everybody takes care of their body. LeBron spends well over $1 million a year on his body and nourishment. I do not believe James Harden spends a quarter of that on his body and his training regimen. So you have that. You have the other issue that Maxey is, I guess, a fledgling third star, but he needs the ball in his hands to be productive. Well, then now you make James Harden unproductive, and James Harden is the engine of that team. So from a facilitating perspective, so they got some, and then on top of that, their coaching is very mediocre, very bland, very similar to Nate. But you notice all those coaches are older. You know, they're over 50, they're plus 55. You know, um, so yeah, I don't believe in Philadelphia. Miami, like you alluded to, they don't have any scoring. And Tyler Hero hurts their defense in the starting lineup. So the one thing they can hold their hat on, they can't even do that anymore. And they have to play Duncan Robinson a lot more than they did last year. Strus a lot more than they did last year. Both bad defenders. Um, and then they play Caleb Martin more than they did last year, and I think they converted his contract over. But he's a streaky player. There's a reason he went late in the second round. He's streaky. So now we have our holes too, but a lot of it to me looks. This is probably the worst we're going to look out the gate because we don't have Bogey. Once Bogdanovich comes back and you add AJ Griffin to the lineup, I think we're going to look a lot more fluid, a lot better. And I don't think it's necessarily coaching. I just think, Murray and Young is going to get more comfortable playing with each other and without each other as well. Because it's not a switch you can turn on and off. Murray and Young have to play one way together, then they have to play a complete opposite way when the one sits on the bench for the other. So it's rather complicated in how they have to work each other. And on top of that, they're getting no assistance from the bench. So it's very nuanced and rather complicated about how this is going to work. I think the Hawks are going to be one of those teams that are much better in the playoffs than they are in the regular season.
Yeah, and I think that's the goal. You want to be better, or you want to be really good in the playoffs. And I think Chicago may fade out. And okay, so I want to ask you this because you and I, we talk to a lot of people. Clint Capella. I think everyone knows our feelings on Clint Capella. If not, go over to We Talk Hawks TV and go back and watch a few of the streams. You'll see that. Go back and watch a few of my videos from last year, and you'll see how I feel about Clint Capella. How long do you see him lasting on the team, and what type of return do you think we need, and what type of return do you think we will get? And then I'll get into what I think.
Trade deadline. Trade deadline.
I've heard saying I agree.
The only thing that to me will save Capella from the deadline is an injury to Okongwu. That's it. Not even the friendship with Trae Young can save him. Okay. There is a lot of shortcomings with Capella. A lot of it has to come from his salary. He's paid like a top 10 center. I don't believe a top 10 center. I believe he's
far
more
from
like, yeah, I believe he's more like 17, 16, somewhere between 16 and 20. The only advantage he gave you was his ability to stretch the floor on offense because he would run to the floor, opposite floor, in the end so fast. He would expand out the floor and make it much more. You got to cover the full 94 feet. And then you got Trae pulling up from half court. He's made his floaters and lobs look indistinguishable. So Clint was really at the peak. He's 28, so in theory he should be in his prime, but that's long gone, I think. And to me, Capella is just he's more a name than what he can actually give you. A lot of nights he is bare minimum at the center position. And I tell people this all the time, especially when we talk Hawks. Shout out Damon. Especially last year, Capella is a little bit above average defender. But because he's surrounded by so many guys who are below average, he looks a lot better than what he actually is. Not well, that was last year especially, but now with Murray, you could kind of see it with another good and a healthy Hunter. You could kind of see like he's kind of useless. He gives you nothing on offense, zero, and defensively. If he, like I said last night, if he doesn't get that initial deflection on the entry post, you might as well write a pencil and Sharpie in 2 points for the other team. He's not a good post defender. We all know he can't switch. Um, he does the most stupid drop coverage I've ever seen a center do. And I tell Rashard this: watch. Now I don't necessarily care for Jared Allen, but watch Jared Allen in drop coverage versus Capella in drop coverage. Completely different. A good center can, in drop coverage, tag the roller, stunt the ball handler to push them back out to the perimeter, and then scramble back down to the low post for a denied entry pass. That's what a good center is supposed to do. Now, I was told that only the upper echelon centers can do that. And I just seen Precious Achua, who's not even a center, do it the other night for Toronto. What I think he can, I think ideally the organization will want a minimum of a first round draft pick. And I don't mean like one of them fake first round draft picks where it's like top 20 protected. They will want ideally something just outside, maybe just outside the lottery. So something like top 14 protected, top 15 protected. They will want somewhere around the 15th, 16th pick for Capella, ideally. Just a little bit less of a return than you would get from Kevin Huerter because Capella's upward trajectory is downward. He's downward, but Huerter's is upward. So I think what they're going to end up getting, though, however, is probably one of them fake first round picks where it's like top 22 protected, something like that, and it ends up being 2 second round picks in 24 and 26.
So yeah, I agree, and I've heard the same about Capella at the deadline. I think that he will be gone. Don't be surprised. This is me now. This is from what I heard. Don't be surprised if Clint Capella is gone before the deadline. Those premature trades, not premature, but those pre-trades in the week of the deadline, or a week before the deadline, kind of like the Norman Powell trade went down.
The Cam Reddish trade.
Yeah, so right around that early mark, he could be gone as soon as that. And I also I think that not even an Onyeka. And by the way, welcome to the stream. Them dirty birds be dirty. I don't know if you're referencing that as the mine. I don't know, but I don't even think Onyeka injury could save Clint Capella. I think that they would just go out there and look to get lengthy players at the deadline and say, you know what, you're going to play center. Because here's the thing. I think that they're going to get a little bit of a different return. I think you have two desperate teams out there looking for, or that's going to be looking for a big man. I think you have Charlotte. Charlotte, I have heard, will almost give up an unprotected pick to get Clint Capella. As far as players goes, listen, I think you're going to get someone that's going to play that can play in the front court. If you're talking about Charlotte, I think you're going to look at a package of Oubre and PJ Washington. I think that's Oubre, Washington, and a first. That's a lot of value back for Capella, in my opinion. Dallas, I think Dallas is going to find themselves saying, you know what, JaVale McGee is good. He's not a starter, especially not going into the playoffs. Dwight Powell is really going to give us a lot of struggle off the bench. And I think you can see a package come back with Reggie Bullock and Dwight Powell. Does Atlanta want a first back for Capella? Yes. Do I think the team's going to give up a first? Not really. I think I would take more of the player route. I'm looking, and I think that even though I don't know that they would really look to get a center like this, I think the Spurs have a really good package. Y'all may not like Jakob Poeltl. I've been liking Jakob Poeltl for a while. I'm looking at what he's been doing starting this season, averaging over 14 rebounds. He did it against Embiid, one of those games. He did it last night against the Timberwolves. He has been great. I like Jakob Poeltl. They have a lot of lengthy guys. I think we're going to talk about your guy next. But I always put trade scenarios together in my mind. I think I can see something going down where Capella and Tyrese Martin is heading back to San Antonio, probably along with the first, heading back to San Antonio for Jakob Poeltl. I think we can get back a guy like Doug McDermott or Josh Richardson and Zach Collins. I would want Devin Vassell. I would give up an unprotected pick to get Devin Vassell. But we talked about that the other day, and Nate would not play him. He would hide him in the rotation. He'll say, well, I think Justin Holiday could give us better production than Devin Vassell. So I think that could be a package to get back. I think Travis is willing to still go with Nate. I mean, I'm so willing to go with Onyeka at the starting 5, but he knows that we're going to need significant size coming off the bench. And I think that you get that. Like, not even just significant size or like just get a 7-footer, but like different. Like Zach Collins is a big guy. He's 6'11". Jakob Poeltl 7'1".
I like Zach Collins. The injuries kind of scared me off, but I liked him, and especially when he was important.
Yeah, and I'm not saying Zach Collins has to be in the rotation, but if Jalen Johnson's not giving you what you're expecting, maybe you can slide Zach Collins in there. If there's an injury that comes by in the playoffs, or just if you look at I lost my train of thought there. Oh, okay. If you look at like situational stuff, which Nate is not a situational coach, but if you think about like situationally, like what Orlando and Charlotte did to us, like they knew that size would hurt us, and they just threw a big lineup out there. You can throw Zach Collins out there along with Jakob Poeltl. Tangu is saying Jakob Poeltl won't be an upgrade. Tangu, listen. There are a lot of guys you're going to find out there that's going to do a better job than Clint Capella. I'm trying to give Clint Capella every benefit of the doubt. I said, Clint, if you're not going to do anything on offense, you got to grab like 15 boards and get like 2-3 blocks. Yeah. Rudy Gobert does that. Jakob Poeltl does that. JaVale McGee does that. If I was going to say this on the stream the other night, but I didn't get a chance to. If Hassan Whiteside,
I like him too.
I love Hassan Whiteside. If Hassan Whiteside, I said,
no, I'm a little about the maturity issues, but I think with Murray here and with Trey,
and by the way, I'll say this with Poeltl and Murray. Don't forget San Antonio; they have a connection, and it's not that hard for Trey to get going with another center. But here's the thing with Capella, Clint. I said, if take Onyeka out of the picture, just for this scenario, I said if Hassan Whiteside was the backup big, he would be getting far more minutes than Capella, number one, and we wouldn't be crying for Capella to come back in the game for rim protection and rebounds and stuff like that. We wouldn't be asked to say, Capella, come back in, and then Capella gives us nothing. Hassan Whiteside, we finishing games. Why? Because Hassan Whiteside is a rim protector like no other. Hassan Whiteside is, I'm not going to say he's a scorer because he's not. Let's be honest. But Hassan Whiteside is a rim protector. He's going to grab a board. Same thing as JaVale McGee, Andre Drummond. Those are 3 guys that I really, really like. I saw Andre Drummond shooting threes. But Jakob Poeltl, I'm looking for a center who's not even going to really score, but that can just grab boards. Now, if you're going to tell me that I can get Miles Turner, then I'll take Miles Turner. But, I just think Capella had a bad year, but I think he would do better this year. He has his role. I disagree. He first of all, and I would say this, I might go on a little rant. I don't know. Clint Capella is awful on anything moving on defense. A team runs a play going to the basket, take Capella out of there. It might as well be 4-on-5. And you probably say, well, Clint Capella's he's a great rim protector. it's not it's not really like it's not there because Clint Capella can't guard drop coverage, can't guard the pick and roll. He got cooked by, and I know that I think it was Trey or Hunter on Oubre, but Oubre was going left every time. Mason Plumlee was down in the post. When a lefty goes left, he's not throwing the ball to the center. He's taking the shot. Center step up. He's got to step up, and he did not step up. He cooked them like 2-3 times back to back on that play. And so yeah, so he's just, I don't know. Clint Capella, I think he's good. Don't get me wrong, he's good at moments, but he's nowhere near consistent.
Exactly.
And then but I'll go into this last segment type thing here. We talked about Clint, we talked about Trey and Murray, talked about Nate for a while. And then I'll finish it. So you think that we're gonna get? So you think it's just gonna be a first round pick and no like players or anything like that?
I think they would take that. I think they would take a first round pick without any long term money. I think they would take that. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Something to also keep in mind with Jakob Poeltl, he's an expiring contract, by the way. So he would expire off the books. But to finish off, I think that we still have, like you said, with Bogey and AJ, because I do think AJ Griffin's going to take the slot. But I think with Bogey and AJ, we're going to be better. But what do you think when Onyeka moves to the starting center position? First of all, what's the plan at backup? And what do you think we're going to need off the bench come playoff time? Do you think it's going to be size, shooting? What do you think we're going to need?
From a player perspective or from a talent perspective, what we need to inject on the roster?
Yeah, like what do we need to say, you know what? We're beating Milwaukee or Boston in the Eastern Conference Finals. They head to the finals.
We definitely need DeAndre to be 100% engaged and better. I think a lot of that is going to come from another coach that can get him more engaged and regularly a part of the offense and not just a tertiary, just afterthought. I think we're going to need Bogey, not how he was last year, but the year before that when he was matching wits with Stephen Curry for the best three-point percentage in the NBA. I think he shot like 43, 44% that year from three. We need that Bogey. We need Murray, like I said, to be the primary decision maker and Trey more as an output than an input. So him coming off the ball, free of decisions, scoring or assisting, and Murray more of the dude who decides where to pass the ball, when, and how to massage the lead or pick up the pace to get back into a game. So,
so you don't think we need anything else?
I mean, I do. A big man wouldn't hurt. Hassan Whiteside wouldn't hurt. Like I said before, I love Paul Reed. I love Nicholas Claxton for Brooklyn.
Because to me, if we get some size, I don't think there's gonna be a lot of teams like running Bogey and AJ. Because listen, my mind is set on that now. Because I think Justin Hall is gonna be out of the rotation. So I think with Bogey and AJ, that's enough shooting right there. Like,
and I think
size would push us over the top.
Staggered thing, I like it in theory. My only problem with it is I haven't seen it done to where I haven't seen it done effectively yet. So either they're tired at the end of the season because they have to play so much, or they don't have any rhythm because in the playoffs, you're not going to do that staggered thing. They're going to play together the whole time. And it's going to throw off the rhythm of the other players on the court. So what I like the staggered thing for certain games, especially more so in the playoffs than the regular season. I wouldn't do the staggered situation in the regular season. I would do it for the playoffs because Trey has shown for 3 years now in a row they're going to have a top 10 offense, top 5 really, regardless of who his teammates are, pretty much. So he even put up a 105 offensive rating with the G League players last year, especially that game they went into Cleveland and won. So I think the staggered thing is more so for the playoffs than the regular season. I would want to see them go out and go get another score first guard off the bench, an upgrade from Justin, from not him too, but an upgrade from Aaron Holiday.
I like Aaron Holiday.
I like him, but he needs to be more in a.
He's 25.
He needs to be more in a third wheel type of guy.
Yeah, I kind of want to see him.
Trying to think of a
lock down.
Well,
I mean, I like Gabe Vincent.
Yeah. We're not. I mean, this is like the highest end version of what I'm talking about. But we need somebody like a Reggie Jackson to come off our bench, to where Murray. I'm talking about for the regular season. For Murray and Young to rest. I don't want to tire them out by the playoffs where they're playing 38, 40 minutes a night, staggering, and then you get to the playoffs and their legs are gone.
Yeah. I agree. You kind of almost lost me. You said Aaron Holiday upgrading from him. But I do agree with that. And then before we end the show, I want to throw this one last center out there. Just give me a brief opinion on him. What do you think if? And it's funny you say Reggie Jackson. What if a package was put together where like Clint and Frank Kaminsky went to LA for Zubac and Reggie Jackson?
I would take that. I would take that.
Okay, so my last thing here, if LA said, even though they don't care about it, but if LA said throw in a protected first, would you do it?
Yeah, I'll probably give them that Kevin Huerter pick because I don't think you need 2 firsts in 24 anyway. I think one of those is a trade chip anyway. So yeah, I would do that because to me that would put us conference finals, NBA finals, regardless of the coach. And then it comes down to, at that point, it's pretty much luck,
Now in the offseason, you can implement the right coach to have the blend of that group. Yeah. Exactly. Okay. Yeah. So, guys, we'll be doing this a lot more often. Like I said, I mean, he's the new co-host of the show. We'll get into more of a rhythm, kind of like Trey and Murray. But I want to thank all of you guys for tuning in. It was fun. So especially when we got deep into it. Like I said, we'll be doing this a lot more often. But I want to thank all of you guys, like I said, for tuning in. I will see you guys. Well, Hawks play tomorrow, so I'm probably see you guys tomorrow. Hopefully we can win, or we might see a new head coach a lot sooner than later.
Definitely.
But thank all y'all for tuning in. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Have a good one.